Well, hello everybody. Hello. And here we go. I've got a little number for you.
That's enough. Let's get on with the song.
Let's get on with the song.
Once a jolly swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come along, sing Matilda with me. Oh, sing Matilda, oh, sing Matilda. You'll come along, sing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You'll come along, sing Matilda with me.
You'll let unmute your mic.
How's that?
Now, how about that for an intro?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Good day, Ozzy. How's it going?
Really well, thank you. Really well.
Good. Excellent. What have you been up to today then?
I'm still in Romania in Eastern Europe.
All right.
Doing a few little building projects around the place.
Good.
But I am heading back down under. I'll be back there a week from today, in fact. I've been away a long time, including my trip to Manitowoc for the rally.
Yep.
So I've been away from home since the 6th, so I think it is, of May. So
gee,
it's a long time. So I hope they'll let me back in. So
are you sure you know the way there?
Yeah. Well, at least just hope the pilot does. That's all I care about. So, yeah. So, but I've been busy. It's hot here in Europe. As I think it's been pretty hot all across the northern hemisphere this summer, and but all's good. And obviously, very closely watching it, like all of us, to matters unfolding in regard to Stephen and Brendan's cases.
Yep.
Both the formal aspects, the informal aspects, the continued investigations that are done by members of the groups. So it's an interesting time. I find it, even though things are quiet at the moment in a sense, that we're waiting on Judge Sukowicz to rule on the post-conviction motion. That calm, if I can call it, that calm before the storm, I would suggest, is actually just generating other things, and potentially making matters worse for the state. So,
yes, it's just making them look even, excuse the French, shittier.
Yeah, exactly. So now I do know you want to talk about something today, right?
Well, yes.
And in fairness to our listeners, most of which I would gladly say they don't know much about nor want to know much about cricket, right?
No. I was going to mention the fact that it's Steve's birthday. Or it was.
Yeah.
Steve's birthday.
We can talk about Steve. Well, Steve's birthday is on the 9th, which was Tuesday, so 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yes.
So he turned 57. So yeah, one of the sad things when you think about 57, if you deduct off, say, your years up to age 20, saying they were the years of your youth.
Yep.
That leaves Steve with 37 adult years, of which he's been incarcerated for 32, I think it is.
Yes, 32.
Of those 37 years. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And yet, but even more incredible, that's incredible in an ugly sense, but more incredible in a positive sense, is Stephen's resilience.
Yeah.
His commitment to his innocence, and is just fascinating as a matter of human condition. And there is already, of course, but when he finally gets out, it'll be just a remarkable example of someone who believed in himself and those obviously around him that believed him as well. But his resilience and his commitment to finding freedom through innocence is just inspirational to us all.
Well, absolutely. I did see a tweet by Sandra Greenman to say that she was going to honour Steve's birthday by letting him win at cards, which suggests to me that normally she doesn't.
That would be correct.
Yeah, because you would know.
I do. Steve is a pretty sharp card player.
Is he?
Oh yeah.
I thought he was shite at cards.
No, he's good.
Okay.
This is the way I put it. When I played cards with him,
Mm-hmm.
if I have all the luck and he has none, I might win, right?
Yeah.
If we both have equal amounts of luck, he'll win.
Right.
And if he has all the luck,
Yeah.
and I don't have much, he'll just crap all over me, right?
Oh,
So, and then when Sandra obviously sees Steve on her own as well, but sometimes she comes with me when I'm there.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping I beat Sandra. That's my. So that's my goal. But
Well, what you could do is you could say that it's a Sandra. It's a long way to walk back to your place.
I've said that. I've said, who's got the car keys, right? Although I don't actually have the car keys. You're not allowed to take anything like that into the visiting room. They're all kept in a locker.
Yeah.
But actually, to be honest, Sandra she's played a lot of cards with Steve over God knows how many years, but she is pretty good herself, actually. So, and I think she saw Steve on Monday, which was the day before his birthday, because Tuesday is not a visiting day at Warpond. So that's when she would have seen him, I would think. So,
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I've got. I've put my my Australia shirt on that I got many years ago. I got the one that you sent me that Eunice was wearing. I've got the one that I got because it was just a little bit tight round the centre, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Certainly know that.
Complete with badges that I got at the rally. So. So surely you were watching the cricket. So surely we hammered those whinging Poms.
Hang on a minute. I got to put on my Jeffrey Boycott hat. So just for the benefit of context, it was semi-final day in the World Cup cricket that's been going on for about 6 weeks. Paul, would that be about right?
Yeah.
And yesterday, in a delayed game, New Zealand unremarkably came back and effectively whooped India. Well, not really whooped them, but certainly turned the tables on them.
Yeah.
But today it was a bit more pedestrian than that. Australia were playing England in the other semi-final, and we got a hiding.
No, not to those whinging Poms.
So of course you know what that means now. It's England and New Zealand play in the final, and of course. Instantly, Australians become New Zealanders.
Oh yeah,
that's right. So got to beat the mother England, you know. So
the mother something.
That's right. Yeah. So, and I think when is that final? Is it on Sunday?
Sunday, yes. Sunday, Lords, yes.
Yeah. So, which is, and then we have the Test series after that, of course. So that'll be interesting. So.
Well, yes, it could be. I suspect that the damage has been done in terms of the Test matches. But what I would say is that England got absolutely hout in the last World Cup by New Zealand. Mm-hmm. You might not recall this too well because. I suspect, Mark, that you tend to follow the only sort of indigenous Australian sport, other than sort of riding kangaroo bareback, which is of course Aussie rules football.
Yes,
I get the impression that you're a bit of an Aussie rules fan. You know your stuff when it comes to Aussie rules, don't you?
Well, I actually follow all the sports, to be honest. And
I know you do, but
I'm more of a rugby league fan than any of all the football coach. Yeah, so that's what I used to play when I was a young whippersnapper myself. So
right?
Yeah, but
Rugby,
anything where there's good competition, I watch. So that's what
yeah.
basically my position.
Because I'm sure you were explaining to us that the Aussie rules game is like centred between sort of Sydney, Melbourne, and in a Brisbane. It's in a pretty sort of narrow area. Is that right?
Well, the Aussie rules game, or Australian rules football, as it's called,
Sorry.
basically was dominantly formed in Melbourne or Victoria, Tasmania, and South Australia, and
Right.
and Western Australia for that matter.
Yep.
But it always had some, significant interest from New South Wales and Queensland, where the rugby league and rugby union dominated.
Mhm.
But some years ago, in fact, in those earlier days, it was called the Victorian Football League.
Mhm.
But as happens with a lot of these sports, some years ago they wanted to make it more national. It made the television audiences more commercially viable if you had teams in other cities.
Yeah.
So there was a direct decision by what was then the Victorian Football League to nationalise the competition and transplanted 4 or 5 or 6 teams out of Victoria into the other states, and of which there was already interest for football there. And so it became like Sydney has 2 teams, for example. Queensland has 2 teams. Perth has 2 teams, and Adelaide has 2 teams. So I think I covered them all there. So there's eight out of, I think, 18 teams come from other states, and the other 10 are in Victoria.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's a good game to watch, as you know.
Bloody good sport. I thoroughly enjoyed it, I must admit. I mean, what would have really made my day, because St Kilda won. But if the dude and Stacey had been arrested, that would have really made our day.
Wouldn't that have been a classic?
That would have been absolutely brilliant.
Of course, when you get arrested in Australia, your jumpsuit looks like a kangaroo, right? It's got a little pocket in the front,
Yeah.
two little ears, So
Have they got one big enough for Sasquatch?
No, that's right. That's true. He's not a little guy. He's pretty tall, our friend, Mr. Kose. So, yeah.
Well, actually, Stacey is as tall, but the dude is wide as well. He's a proper monster. Anyway. Sorry. What? Getting back to the serious thing. Let's say England got hammered by New Zealand 4 years ago in the Cricket World Cup, and what England did was said, look, this is all wrong. We have been playing the game this way for so long, and we have been totally unsuccessful at it. We need to adopt a different approach. We need to learn by our mistakes. And so they learned by New Zealand. And I mean, to be honest, probably the way that all the other teams in the world were playing. But it just happened that it was New Zealand that were playing under Brendan McCullum, very, very aggressive. Very much a case of, if you hit 1-6, don't just sort of, just pad the ball back the next ball. If you've gone for 1-6, put the ball in the pitch, hit him again for 6. And it wasn't a case of pussyfooting about. It was serious stuff. So England have completely revamped. They've learned by their mistakes. So I've got written down here legacies. Legacies. I know that you, for one, have followed this case so much so, probably more so than anybody else I know. You have been on this case, in a different way, certainly to Eric Jose, although interesting, wasn't it? In one of his Facebook messages, he was talking about travel.
Yes.
Did you
Yes.
see that? Did you see it? He loves travel. He loves traveling. You should travel more. It's something along those lines. And I'm thinking, hold on a sec. They reckon that
Oh, yes, I did see that.
yeah,
Yes.
that like wolves became domesticated animals within about 3 generations. I reckon within about three plane trips, he's become completely adjusted to the idea of travel. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think he realizes the world isn't flat, and and doesn't end in Los Angeles and New York.
Punch Island.
Yeah, that's right. So, hey, one thing I was going to say, because it's come up in different ways over the last
Yeah.
month or two, is that one of the fascinating things I find about these cases, beyond the drama and the impact it has on Stephen and Brendan and their families, is the differing levels of the way people participate in the search for truth.
Yeah.
Whether you are there making commentary or comments or observing things through Facebook, whether you're doing your own live broadcast like you and Eric Jose and others do, and me to a much lesser extent. Whether you have those really clever and deep researchers through Reddit and people who use Reddit a lot, or people like TikTok Manitowoc and that cohort of deep investigators. Then there's the people who are probably more closely linked to the families, to the Dassies and to the Averys, providing pursuit of justice through personal support and empathy at a very intimate level. And then you have the lawyers, of course, Stephen Drizzen, Laura Nyrider and their teams, and Kathleen Zellner and her team.
Yep.
And then you have this bigger audience of people who are concerned but haven't yet made the commitment to be closely involved, but are still genuinely interested. And so when you've got this really fascinating mix of the way people make their contribution, and I find that extremely powerful.
Yeah.
Sometimes it ruffles the feathers that someone's doing something a little differently to the way they would do it and that sort of stuff. But that's really minor compared to the power that it generates by being together. And it's just interesting. And I get really excited. I go and read stuff that other people say and do and filter it in my head and go, oh, that's really good stuff, And I don't know whether you see it that way. There's just more.
Absolutely.
It's and there's so many just wonderful, wonderful people who are deeply, deeply involved in this matter, and it's extremely encouraging. And one of the reasons why you and me and many, many others are so committed to this journey.
Yeah, as I've said many a time before, that there's a story, isn't there, about Harry Redknapp, the Spurs manager. When they were, sort of at the height, one of the heights of their powers. That they've been a strong team for a long time, but in particular, I mean, they played in the last UEFA Champions League final. But going back a couple of years, when Harry Redknapp was the manager, he was talking about the fact that the pundits were applauding him for being the manager, and he said, hold on a sec, guys, I mean, I'm only the manager. He said, if I don't turn up at work tomorrow, there's plenty of other people who'll take my place. And he said, if any of the first team coaches don't turn up, there's plenty of reserve team coaches that'll take my place. And if they don't turn up, then there's plenty of senior players that will take their place, and a whole list of stuff. He said, but the guy that gets on the bus first for the kit, if we lose him tomorrow, he knows where all the kit is. He's it doesn't matter how high up you are. It's all these people in the that are just there doing their little bit. So this is, as I always say, it's all about the number of supporters out there. Doesn't matter what what you do, whether you're just clicking on a subscribe here, like a tweet there, like a Facebook message there, like a video there. That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Very much so. And there is this residual benefit in terms of people's heightened awareness of justice per se, and also how they may react and handle a circumstance when they're faced with having to deal with the law, be it being stopped by a traffic officer or being, in court as a juror or as a defendant or as a witness, or even just being at a dinner party and being unfortunately rushed to judgment about someone's guilt, and rather than sitting back and weighing up the balance of probabilities. Because I'm certainly a person who's very cautious about, if you like, identifying people as being guilty. It's one thing to identify someone as being potentially requiring further investigation. But to call out someone guilty is a big thing to do, and unfair in my opinion, unless and so anyway, the point of making that point was that in this process of all these layers of people being involved in this case, not only has it helped the case itself, but I think there's a huge feedback benefit to all of us in our individual heightened awareness of the justice systems and what around the world and how they can be improved and hopefully be better for the generations to come.
Absolutely. What I was going to ask you, and I know you've done this many times before, so I apologise for this, but I would I suppose the best way of putting this would be, I know where you live. I know exactly. You are on the other side of the world to Stephen Avery. So why should he bother to you? What is it that what is it that you're wanting to achieve out of sort of following Steve? What kind of legacy do you want to leave?
In my little micro element, hopefully more significantly when added to by everyone else's little micro element, I want to end up with a justice system that avoids with more certainty the situation that we've found ourselves in with Stephen and Brendan. There are two men that should not be in prison, and the consequences of them being in prison is not only bad for them and their families, it's bad for Wisconsin, it's bad for the United States, it's bad for democracy and justice around the world. And the circumstances surrounding their wrongful conviction is not just incompetence or a bit of bad luck. It's a willful attempt to imprison people. When they knowingly knew what they were doing, that is, the law enforcement was wrong. It makes me sick to the stomach when I think about it. And so my legacy issue is I'm involved because I don't want to see this happen again, or if it does, it to be minimized, that it does, and secondly, that there be consequences to those that cause it to happen, so much so that they'll think twice about even contemplating such action against innocent people in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the fact that Stephen is just a real nice guy, and so is his family. And Brendan, I don't know Brendan very well. I've spoken to him a few times, but I haven't met him. But I certainly met his wider family. And they're all just nice folk. The fact that that's also there, that's just a bonus. So
yeah, I mean, I did, as I say, I picked up on the fact that Manitowoc is this sort of well-to-do place, and so I totally picked up on the fact that you know, that they're these guys that, you know, as far as some people are concerned, you know, that they you know, we want to distance ourselves from them. But in doing so, you've ended up creating this phenomenon. Excuse the Americanization phenomenon of making a murderer. And you know, it would have been so much better had everybody involved in Steve's case just say, hold on a second, yeah, we need to look at this. We've got Kathleen Zellner tweeting about the fact that on Steve's birthday, why, oh why, are the state not prepared with the evidence that she's uncovered already, prepared to put Steve back on trial? I mean, if he lost, would it be the state that even paid for the trial?
Well, the question, I mean, you know, evidentiary hearings and the right to, subject to a court ruling, the right to a new trial is part of the justice system. It's not a reward.
Yeah, no.
It's part of the system. And it gives system, you know, it gives justice its true name. So if there is compelling new evidence that would warrant a doubt that had that new evidence been available at the time of the trial, the jury would have had doubt, or the decision they made would have been unreliable, then the justice system is designed to rehear that matter. We shouldn't feel, you know, grateful for it. It is part of the system, you know, that's part of it. And the state's resistance to allowing it is not because of the entitlement to it, even though that is part of it. It's because they're fearful of what that new trial will put on the record as being what's really gone on here. So it's fear is why they're resisting, not justice. It's the fear of the consequences of granting him a new trial. It's not even fear of him being free. I don't think they're fearful of him being free.
No.
They're fearful of him, and also Brendan, of course. They're fearful of what will be publicly on the record as a consequence of that.
Yeah.
Hence why I've long held the view that their safest option of a bunch of bad options is just to let them go, and don't even get to an evidentiary hearing or a new trial. Just let them go, because that won't in any way mitigate their risk of having some sort of civil action brought against them. But from the personalities involved, the people, all those law enforcement and upper echelon people who we know are involved in this, the worst thing they want, that they fear, is having to get in the stand and swear under oath. That's what they fear, and that's why we have this resistance.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah.
And as I say, that was one of the latest tweets by Kathleen Zellner. The fact that you know, why is the state so reluctant to give them a retrial? And I would just point out that was my message in my reflyer that I did, was, you know, why not just hand over all the evidence, as you've said many a time. You know, if Stephen Avery is this really guilty, really evil person that you've decided you want to go and visit despite all the risks involved, and I mean there must have been huge risks involved, wasn't there? You know, he's a convicted rapist, murderer, and you know he
psychopath,
burns people at whim, you know. So why not just hand over the evidence? Well, of course, the problem is that they have. Isn't it a case that they have held on to this ever-rising balloon of sticking behind the Halbach family?
Yeah.
They've hidden behind the Halbachs and said, look, here's this gruesome crime. Ken Kratz made it as gruesome as he possibly could. He, you know, I'm you know,
that crime is a crime of their piece of fiction. It's
yes,
not a crime that bears any evidence to that description. There is not a crime that Stephen Avery admitted to in any way. It's a piece of fiction generated by detectives and echoed through Brendan's mouth in part by getting him to repeat what they wanted him to say, a vulnerable 16-year-old boy with no lawyer present at all ever. And they make that out as if it's a piece of fact. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just fanciful and disgraceful. So
I don't know if you've watched much of the latest sort of offerings from Netflix, but there seems to be, we're being inundated with stuff from Netflix. The latest being Exhibit A.
yeah, I've watched those 4 episodes.
Aren't they brilliant? I absolutely love the attorney that represented George Powell, Mike Ware. I thought he was absolutely top notch. And
the
sorry,
the last one the last two, the third one or second last was about the cadaver dog.
Yes,
and how someone was convicted effectively on the basis of a bark.
Yes,
right. That was the only evidence, a bark.
Yeah.
And then the last one was on some DNA stuff.
But it was all statistics.
Yeah, just a statistic.
Which would have meant that every one person out of something like 133 would have fitted the DNA.
Correct. Seriously, I mean, really, I just kind of trying to drill down behind the horrors of those stories and think, where is the motivation for this pursuit of convictions? And you go back, there's the Netflix story. Is it a Netflix story? Yes. That talks about the history of getting tough on crime, starting in the 70s, I think it was. Forgive me that I'm not remembering either the name or the source of it, but I watched it recently. It's really interesting.
I think it's 13th.
Oh, yeah, we go. Yeah, 13th. That's it.
And it's very interesting because it was obviously the same woman that did the When They See Us.
Yes.
Ava DuVernay.
Yeah.
This,
I mean, don't you want law enforcement to want the truth as much as anyone else?
Well, they do.
And it's just like, they're trying to just rack up, notches in the belt rather than truth. We don't want guilty people to go free if we can avoid it, but more than that, we don't want innocent people convicted. Yeah. And we value freedom over much more. And so, but that whole paradigm of what law enforcement should be doing and the role of law enforcement seems to have been lost on a generation or more of, law enforcement officers and the hierarchy that trains them. Yeah. The expression, I'm sorry, I've said it before, it just seems to me that the system hasn't evolved. Yeah. It's stuck in some, time warp back in the 60s and 70s or something. Yeah. Where you just capture people, you put handcuffs off them, you parade them in orange jumpsuits or whatever the color of the day is. Yeah. And you get convictions. Yep. And you end up with, now over 2 million adult Americans in prison. Yeah. It's just 4 or 5 times more than your country or mine. Yes. There are not more criminal people in the US. No. There aren't. What there is a greater willingness to lock them up. Yeah. And deal with them in an incarceration mode rather than other means. It's just, I don't know. For a country that I love a lot, I have a great admiration for, that is the US, I just think, seriously, what is going on there? Yeah. It's time for change. And, Wisconsin is an opportunity. If we had a courageous governor, which to be honest, to Governor Evers, I don't know him at all. Or hi, there, Mrs. Capaldi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm just on my
You can't
soapbox
hear
at the
it.
moment.
You can't hear it because I've got the headphones on, but I'll take the headphones off. You have a seat for two moments.
Okay.
There we go. Have a seat.
How are you doing, Mark?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
I'm still in Eastern Europe, but I'm heading home next week. I'll be back in Australia on Thursday.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm very well, thank you. And I hear you've been out at bingo.
I have. No luck.
No luck?
No luck.
Well, you guys won the cricket today. You beat us, so...
I know. I
oh.
couldn't believe it, actually. When I saw it initially, I mean, it was like 15 for 3 or something at one point.
Yeah, it was a pretty ugly start.
Yeah.
So they got 230, I think, or 25 in the end, but the Poms just battered. So I think they passed them with only 2 wickets out and still 12 or 13 overs to go.
So it's that England, New Zealand in the final.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So I just cannot believe that those whinging Poms have beaten us for the first time since 1772 or something?
1770. Oh no, hang on. What is it?
Exactly.
1778 was when you sent us all in the other direction out to the great land down under, right?
Absolutely.
So we came back and beat you in cricket. So
oh, hold on a sec. Where's? Oh no, I thought I saw a mention of Eric Cozy because of course you know what he's going to say, don't you? He's going to say that the reason that we never beat the whinging Poms is because we couldn't get the right grade of sandpaper to stick down our shorts.
Oh God. Funnily enough, Steve Smith batted pretty well today.
He did. Yeah.
Held them together.
I'll tell you who I was really impressed with was Alex Carey. Because after he got chinned by that short ball from. Did you see the blood? I mean, they put a bandage on, and you're thinking he's going to need more than that. They put this bandage, and it went all the way around his head, and then they put the helmet back on top of him, and you think, hold on a sec, his face is swelling, and yet he kept wicket.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, you on about. You were just about to talk about Mr. Evers.
Yeah, well, Governor Evers is I guess the governor of Wisconsin since last November, was it? I can't remember when it was. I think that's when he was elected in November. And I had high hopes that he would have a more, because he talked about reintroducing the pardons board. But really, what has he done to excite me since he's been there? Nothing. When it comes to criminal justice reform, nothing. And it's disappointing, to say the least. It's been there. So I don't know what you think about that, but that's my assessment. I would have liked to have seen something from him.
I think you often find this, don't you, that you get the you get the new guy in office that's got there because they're gonna shake everything up, and when they get there, all of a sudden, all of the crankies, the various people, here in the UK, you get the civil servants, you get the
yes, minister type
they all
guys.
weigh in and they say, well, if you do this and if you do that and if you do that, then you've got to be careful because this is going to happen.
What was like that
Quangos, sorry.
What was the program that we watched last night? The
one with George Powell.
The American guy that got put down for murdering that lassie, was it? And no,
Which one?
Oh God, what is the Asian fella?
Oh, right, Adnan Syed.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And they thought that there was a new governor coming on board, and it was, they thought that it was going to be a great thing if this guy had gotten in, but it ended up it was the woman that got in.
Yeah.
and of course it totally scarred them.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
they just like were.
Well,
Well, that's it. Because this other guy had been really for it. You know, he'd showed quite a lot of interest in the case, and you know, saying that he thought that you know the guy was innocent and stuff like that, and they really thought that he was going to get in. And when he didn't get in, the solicitor that's been helping, she was totally devastated that this woman had got in because she had no idea about the case and actually no interest in it.
Yeah.
you mean
So-
that Rabia Chowdhury?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, for them, and again, the guy lost his appeal.
Yes.
All because what had happened and stuff. And you just think, when you look at all the evidence for that felly, I mean, it's just absolutely ludicrous that he was even convicted in the first place, never mind anything else. The same as Stephen and Brendan. You know, there's obviously collaboration there, and you just think, what has the guy done? And that's what he was saying, like, what have I done to deserve this? You know,
Well,
I wasn't even there.
no, but the problem was he got discovered for being not the one that had attacked Penny Bernstein.
Yeah.
That was the big problem.
Yeah.
Was that he never admitted his guilt. Really, you know, for most of us sort of weak-minded people, if that had been me, no way would I've ever considered doing 32 years for something I hadn't done. I would have just given up, you know, because that's, you know, when you watch number 4 of Exhibit A, that's what the Mayor Herkovich was saying, you know, if they're going to pin this kind of stuff on me, I have no chance. I'm going to give up now if they're finding my DNA on that stuff, because clearly I'm getting stitched up, you know, and God bless him, you know, Steve is so pig-headed that he never admitted his guilt. We hear that you know, he was seeing people who had committed murder going free because they had admitted, and they were getting released out on the parole board, and yet he wasn't.
Well, that rule in Wisconsin, I presume it probably exists in other states where you don't get parole if you don't admit your guilt. I mean, that's just a formula for wrongful convictions, because people are going to admit, not everyone, clearly Steve's not one of those, people are going to say they were guilty just to ensure they either get a lesser deal, in other words, lesser years, or guaranteed parole. I mean, and you end up with, and you know, if you get convicted, a criminal conviction is a huge burden on you for the rest of your life, in terms of employment and travel and so on. But we started this part of the conversation, Paul, on the basis that we were talking about Governor Evers. You know, what troubles me is that we still don't, the system that's in all our countries still doesn't seem to accommodate a true believer in independent thought. We occasionally get people that inspire us, but they tend to be tethered by, if you like, the moderate position of their party, or the self-interested position of those that influence the party, whether it's through outside interests or some sort of sort of principle that they're aspiring to. I mean, I want to see someone come along, whether it's in the United States or my own country or wherever. Like, you've got the current issue in the UK with the craziness with Brexit and you know, this is just garbage, and it's dishing up garbage to people who, effectively the young people of the nation, who have to inherit whatever decisions the older people make. And I find it very disheartening that we're not seeing people coming through and having a chance to really make change. And criminal justice reform in the US is badly, badly, badly needed. And there are some steps going on in some states, but it's an you know, as I've said somewhat cynically, you know, you can boast about sending a man or two to Mars, but you can't put the effort in to get a better justice system, which has a benefit for everyone in the United States,
course.
Everyone gets a benefit from a better justice system, even if you never have to be presented to it. You know it's there. So I just think it's laziness. It's political laziness not to address these big issues, and climate change is another one of those things as well.
Yeah.
You know,
2 seconds. 2 seconds.
I think, the biggest thing that I find really, really strange is, I mean, obviously we've got the laws in Scotland and England are totally different. We were talking about today, actually, about the drinking laws, for example. My brother has come back from Saudi this morning, and he was saying that when he arrived in Heathrow, he was able to drink at 4 o'clock in the morning. He had a pint of lager, which he hasn't had for 6 months. But, in Scotland, they're trying to stop those laws that, like the airports, that if you're flying out of somewhere, you can't get an alcoholic drink until maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. Whereas a lot of people, when they go on holiday, it's like that's a big thing. The start of their holiday is being able to have a drink. And my brother coming back, in England, the laws are totally different. You can get alcohol 24 hours a day in England, whereas in Scotland, it's only like between 10 in the morning and 10 at night. You can actually go out and buy from the supermarkets or a pub or whatever, pubs are different laws and stuff. But, it's in different states how the laws are so different. And you've got, the death penalties in some states. And surely you get a situation where it's coming from the top, where you're going, the whole land is trying to work from the same laws. Whereas in America, they just seem to make their own laws, whatever state they're in.
Yeah, well, I mean, interestingly, Eunice, in Australia, we have a group, we have states as well, and a lot of the general laws, the criminal laws are state-based laws, but there is uniformity in most of those.
Yeah.
So we don't have the variety of differences that are in the United States. In Australia, they're not identical, but they're pretty much the same. I think in the United States, there's 21 states that still have the death penalty.
Yes.
And, we had the situation with the Central Park Five back in whenever that case was, that, the then not the president, Donald Trump, was, promoting that those five guys be given the death sentence.
Yeah, he was very vocal about that, wasn't he?
It's just, I mean, really? I mean, I can't support death penalty in any circumstances. I call it legalized murder. And I think that's not in any way to lessen or mitigate the seriousness of the crime that might have otherwise caused that sentence to be applied.
Sure.
But I just don't think an eye for an eye type approach is the hallmark of a civil society.
No,
and
I totally agree with that, Mark, because I think that, obviously the death penalty, I think, went out in 1969 in Britain. But there was a lot that they found out afterwards that guys that are, and women who had actually been hung unjustifiably.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to say that's true in lots of places. I mean, even in the United States, since the introduction of DNA evidence.
Yeah.
I think the number, I could be wrong, I think there's something like 300 American prisoners have come off death row as a result of being cleared due to DNA. But it comes back to this basic issue of evolving your justice system. And it unfortunately in the United States there's a lot of commercialism attached to the justice system, with privately, well, even though the prisons may be owned government-wise, they're often privately run.
Yes.
There's commercial gains to be made by various organisations who provide services to the prison system.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that private organisations can't be part of, the administration of things, but when there is significant commercial gain to be made by outside organisations, and those organisations are major lobbyists to government, then to me that's a huge conflict of interest. And you say, okay, well, what's the measure of that? Well, just look how many people are in prison in the US. Look at it.
Yeah.
And you've got 40% of the population are black or Hispanic, and they only represent that's in prison, but only represent 15% of the general population.
Yeah.
You know, these are awful things, right? You know,
Ludicrous, isn't it?
yeah. So anyway, I'm just hopeful. And fortunately, in Wisconsin, they did away with the death penalty like 150 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, interestingly, that as I think we may know, that when Stephen's conviction was first ratified in 2007, there were, leading up to that time at least, there were calls for the death penalty to be brought back. This is even before he's brought to trial, right?
Very similar to the Central Park Five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that case, there were people who were.
Well, you know, when we were at the rally, you know, the majority, in fact, I would say 99.9% of people that drove past were tooting their horns in support. There was only one, and it was a woman actually, which I was really shocked at. You know, had drove past and she went, "Hang the bastards."
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, gosh almighty, that is just unbelievable how
narrow-minded.
Yeah, narrow-minded, and maybe not even wanting to willing or wanting to look at the case. It's just she's made a judgment and that's it. You know, hang the bastards. And
I think, I mean, it's true of lots of cases like this, where there's such a public attachment to it, that people aren't, pride is in their way of saying, hey, you know what, I might have rushed to judgment here and thought that these gentlemen were guilty because I was horrified about the story. Yeah. And then they stick by that rush to judgment because they're too proud to admit they might have been wrong. And most of those people, if you ask them, tell me why you think they're guilty, they don't give you any substantial answer at all. No. They just say, oh, well, we just think he is. Or they say, well, the jury found them guilty. Right. Yeah. Well, that's not the way you make a judgment about someone.
No.
It's
a judgment thing, isn't it? You know, it's like meeting somebody that's, for example, covered in tattoos. Before they actually speak to you. And I would say that I'm guilty of that. You know, when you meet somebody, you make a judgment about them until you actually get to know them. And then you think, oh, that's not what they're about at all, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big thing is the preconception of what people are actually like just by looking at them.
Well, Stephen Glenn will come from a scrapyard, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there were people in Wisconsin, certainly in Manitowoc, that said, "Oh, you don't want to go out there because you don't know that you're going to get back."
Yeah.
You know, it's like based on what?
What? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just prejudice and.
Yeah.
And the Avery family, in particular, because they have the scrapyard in their heyday, if I can put it that, were and still are highly regarded by the community that are interested in cars. You know, I've been out to the scrapyard many times, and people come in all the time after this piece and that piece, and I've part from a car and so on. It's a mix of life. It's a mix of society that makes the recipe so interesting. If we're all Mark Hoddinott and Paul Capaldi's, I mean, it'd be a boring world. You want that eclectic mix of individuals, so long as they all respect fairness and justice for everyone. That's all that matters.
Stacey's just put, I judged Paul the moment I saw him.
He's very astute, Stacey.
I thought what was interesting was when I disappeared the first time, and Eunice was talking about her brother coming back from Dubai and not able to get a drink and all that kind of stuff. I thought she was going to mention the fact that you've got these draconian laws in America whereby apparently she wasn't supposed to be taxied all the way from Chicago to Manitowoc drinking Budweiser all the way up. That's what
Well, yeah.
she was on about.
All right.
Because that's exactly what she did, but I didn't know anything about it. But yeah,
You know, Paul, there's an old saying which is true, and I've said it before, is that you get the government you deserve. Okay, and that's true, right?
Yeah.
And if you want a better government, you get out there and you vote, and you listen to the arguments. You support candidates who have a better view than the ones you're hearing, and you make it. Doesn't happen overnight, but it can change. And when I was in Manitowoc for 2 weeks during the rally, and I listened a lot to television when I'm there at night, and which I find fascinating because I like to hear how Americans hear news.
yeah,
And as we know, there is a whole sea of Democratic candidates out there vying for the Democratic nomination for next year's presidential election. Now, I won't go into the politics of Democrats and Republicans, but I can tell you this. There are a number of those candidates who are talking about issues in American life that have, until now, never been issues that I've heard candidates talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm encouraged by that, that they're talking about issues that need to be spoken about. Whether they get the nod or whether their party is successful, I don't know. But all I know is there needs to be change, a dramatic change, and just can't leave the same old system going ahead because it's not serving the interests of Americans well. And for the wealthiest country in the world, with one of the poorest records of distributing that wealth amongst its citizens, it's time for change. You know.
Well, this is what I was kind of. We've taken sort of the long way home, if you like, but we were talking earlier about legacies, and could it be that this case is so, for want of a better word, egregious? It is so obvious why Steve was convicted the second time.
Yeah.
Could it be that once this has all been this, for want of a better word, this zit has been bust. You know, this has all been sort of exposed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they don't want. But once it is, that they a little bit like England getting hammered by New Zealand, realizing this is not the way to go. We need to change. We need to change things, and I think with what you're saying about these, you know, as you say, the Democrats. You know, that it is good to hear that. It reminds me of that email that I was sent by Steve Drizzen, where just after the Scotus refused to listen to Brendan's case, he said that, you know, opinions change. You know, the you know, dissenting opinions become majority decisions, opinions, and everything does change. It's just, for me, frustrating that it's taken so long.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I have been encouraged to see back in Australia and now in other places is the rise of young students and their protests and strikes associated with climate change issues. Now, that might seem for some a little naive and a little bit, you know, minor, but it's a big issue. You want young people, anyone from probably 12 and 13 and above, to have a political way of thinking. Politics isn't about conflict, it's about collectively getting together to make your world and the wider world a better place for everyone to live in. That's what politics is about. And we've allowed it to become, you know, combative, and it shouldn't be like that. And young people have got the opportunity to change that paradigm that's existed now for probably 50 years. So, from what I can remember, anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that we'll see young people come through the system. Wouldn't it be nice to see a really, I mean, it doesn't matter what age they are, to be honest, but, you know, someone who's 35 years old who's really pushing big issues and gets large levels of support, right?
Yeah.
All the best ideas don't exist in you know, old folk, you know.
I mean, I was really hopeful this time last year, probably going back a bit further, when Charlie Brown said that he was going to run for governor, and I thought, yeah, you know, that's exactly what we need. And I don't know if maybe it was a case of he needs time to, you know, to really build up, and he was maybe too busy doing his own stuff with his own shows, because he's very, very popular. But I would really love to see somebody like him, and you know, at least you know at the end of the day that the guys are going to get a fair chance at it.
Yeah. I mean, in the United States, you have this crazy, well, it may exist in other countries. I always think it's a crazy system where they vote midweek or Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And the voter turnout is relatively low. And even though employers are supposed to give their employees time off to go and vote, whereas I'm used to the situation in Australia where all elections are always held on a Saturday. And we have compulsory voting in Australia, which ensures that politicians have to speak to everybody in their policy positions. So, yeah, you end up, as I say, you end up getting the government you deserve. So if you've got in the United States, for example, on average, probably more than 40% and sometimes more of people not even voting. Forget politics. Forget out the party politics, I should say at least. Forget party politics. You've got 40% of the people not voting. That means you could be elected running the country on half of those that do.
Yeah.
Which is 30. So 30%,
Yeah.
right? And that's in a good election.
Yeah.
That's not democracy. That's apathy.
Absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And I don't know. It just I get disappointed that you know that, as I say, that a country like the United States isn't more engaged in doing things better when it comes to, you know, running elections and justice and so on. And but they will, you know, spruik the benefits of the latest stealth fighter and the next rocket to Mars, you know, so, which is still important things. I'm not saying they're unimportant, but how about the things that affect everyone every day?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
don't get me started about the healthcare system. I'll be here all night on that one. So
I'm not going to keep you any longer. I'm just going to say, did you enjoy the Worst of Wisconsin video that I did? I have had no end of comments on that one. People that have enjoyed that one because of the music from Carl Orff, Carmina Burana. But
I did enjoy it. I actually made a comment. I know you did a few parts to it. There were a few missing faces that I'm sure just in the enthusiasm to publish it, there were some missing faces which were eventually added later on, I think.
Yeah, so, what it was though, Ozzy, was I wanted to first of all focus on the actual DAs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
As in the most dangerous. Then when I did Worst of Wisconsin, that was when I did everybody. Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed, but the third and the last ones were that clown, that reporter, Dan O'Donnell.
Oh.
He was the one that was recommended by me, by Sheriff Herman, Robert Herman. Yeah. Check out this stuff by Dan O'Donnell, and they are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
things that he's coming out with. But anyway, I thought I would let you go, but what I've got is primed, ready to go. Is one of these other classics by me. And I thought we might have a bit of.
Hey, by the way, was that Rolf Harris at the beginning?
It was. It was. Listen. Don't you complain about Rolf Harris. He fixed it for me to see Gary Litter.
All right.
I wouldn't advertise that, Paul.
No.
Anyway, here we go. I need you to press the button.
Hang on.
Come out and press the. Go on with your finger. That's it.
There we go.
up a bit.
Where's it going? Where's the sound?
And I'll push it again.
Honest. What's oh, there we go.
Technical.
Push. Oh, mate.
What is it like?
Ah, jeez.
God, you're such a great friend to him, Paul. Seriously, you know, he doesn't need any enemies.
What is he going to take off me?
Oh, we've got something working in the background about that.
Yeah.
So. Lovely to speak with you as always, and to you, Eunice.
Yeah, and you, Mark. It's lovely seeing you, my darling.
Hopefully, we'll catch up in person again sometime real soon.
Well, that would be lovely.
Yeah, and enjoy the final in the cricket.
Oh God!
I won't be. We've got bloody whinging Poms
I tell you
in
what,
the final.
I think he'll probably end up making excuses. I was saying that to my dad today. You know, it's my dad's 80th birthday today.
Oh,
so
it's all right of you and him, yeah.
Yeah, and so I had him out for his breakfast, and my brother, who was supposed to be coming back tomorrow, surprised him by coming back today. And David was saying to me, "So where's Paul?" I says, "Oh, he's watching the cricket." I says, "I'm sure there's going to be excuses made. Oh, pupils are too busy today. They won't they won't be needing me because this cricket's on. So I might just take the day off." It didn't. I was really shocked by that.
Hey, one final sport thing.
Yep.
Today, Romanian Simona Halep won her semi-final in Wimbledon, and she's in the final on Saturday against Serena Williams. So yeah, we're barracking for her. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
For what's Serena or the Romanian?
The Romanian Simona Halep.
Oh right, yes.
Yeah. So
why?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't. Because Serena's a bit of a tempestuous.
No, because I'm in Dracula land, Mr. Capaldi. Get it. get your coffin out.
You've got to go for the underdog all the time, haven't you?
That's right. There you go. He's in there.
Yeah.
He's not actually. I emptied it. And I put my.
I was going to say, I think he drank it without me knowing about it.
It's all gone anyway. It's round here. There it is. There it is.
I think he's put it in a hip flask and no told me that he was drinking it. I never had a sip of it.
What I've done is I've put all my essentials for the for my whiteboard there, and the empty brandy is here.
Yeah.
There we go. It was Palinka, was it? Was it Palinka?
It was Immortal. It was. Hold on a sec. Palinka de Prou.
Yeah, that's it. It's a plum wine.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good, aye.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Alrighty, my friends. You take care.
You remember that the night we opened this was when we pulled that trick on Stacey that he's still not recovered from. He is still having nightmares about that.
That was fun.
He might just come in here.
I'm going to say, he's got something planned. I thought that was really funny when he did that. When the marathon finished and he's going, nobody alive. Nobody alive.
Nice speaking to you, though, Mark.
You too, Eunice and Paul. Take care, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get yourself back to Scotland.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay.
Good day, Ozzy. We got your shirts ready for you.
Yeah, mate. You should get a job with the Tourist Commission. Thanks, mate.
What do you mean? I should. I already am.
Alrighty, take care.
Take care.
Cheers,
nice
mate.
speaking to you. Bye.
Bye.